These annexed regions account for about 15% of the country. Putin will now go to his people, no doubt, saying that we won, we achieved what we said we would in this so-called special military operation. But what you're saying is, in terms of your military's response to those declarations, not much is changing. You're just going to continue to advance if you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is something that has been said by our president, Mr. Zelensky. This is something that has been said by our Minister of Defense, Mr. Alexei Reznikov. And this is something, and this is how the Ukrainians feel about what needs to be done next. As a nation, we have no fear, if you like, of the possible outcomes of this referenda. We are, of course, concerned that, and there is already evidence that in those temporarily occupied territories, the Russian authorities are issuing, in a hasty manner, issuing the people of those regions with the Russian passports, which means that they are likely to start conscripting them, to start mobilizing them as well. And this is something that, is very upsetting, because essentially they will be trying to pit Ukrainians against Ukrainians. And when we speak to our international allies, of course, we say that, look, we have to stand together, because this war is far from over, and this is not a war in which Russian leadership is intended to stop in Ukraine. They will go as far as we allow them to go. So this is why we have to persist. We have to continue to receive the support, the military support of our international allies, and we have to keep fighting for the freedom of Ukraine and Europe.
Here in Australia, Yuriy, we've been hearing reports of mobilised Russian men reaching the front lines of Ukraine within days of being summoned by Russia to join the fight. Despite Russian promises of training, often they have to find their own gear as well. Are you seeing an increase of these men on the battlefield, and are you seeing an increase of Russian military turning themselves over to Ukraine because they don't want to fight since the mobilisation?
As you remember, the so-called partial mobilization, and I say this so-called partial mobilization because indeed it's a random mobilization. They get, like everybody, to get their hands on. And essentially, these people indeed very often arrive on the battlefield without any training, and we'll have to see and wait and see where to surrender and save their lives. But we're also seeing, of course, that hundreds of thousands of Russians are fleeing Russia now, right? So they're going to the EU countries, they are going to Georgia. In fact, from what we understand, the number of those who have fled Russia by today is actually larger than the number of those who have been mobilized. So this partial mobilization.
Okay, we seem to have lost you, Yuriy. That's Yuriy Sak. He's an advisor to the Minister of Defence in Ukraine. Some connection issues there. But as we've been mentioning, Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to announce the annexation of those 4 regions in Ukraine sometime in the next 24 hours or so.